We want sex that changes us, it moves us. We want sexual experiences that make us feel like different people, make us feel alive, that there's this deeper connection, like we're kind of special and welcomed in each other's arms and bodies and spirits and hearts in the bedroom. Welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. I'm your host, Dan Purcell, a Christian marriage and intimacy expert and coach. I'm on a mission to help couples have the best sex and most emotionally intimate marriages possible. Our episodes cover topics you've always wondered about and are packed with practical advice designed to help you take your marriage to the next level. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this episode of the Get Your Marriage On podcast. The day this episode is released is Good Friday. Before we begin the episode, I just want to wish you and your family a happy Easter. And let's all thank God for the great gift of His Son and all of the goodness that comes in our life because of His example and His teachings and His sacrifice for us. And what a great gift the resurrection is, and what hope it can fill our lives when we really lean into the deeper meanings of what God has given us. Today, I want to talk to those who are in a marriage where sex feels, they're good. You like sex, but it might feel a little monotonous at times. Maybe it feels like it's the same old, same old. You want to kind of spice it up, but then there's other factors involved, like you're feeling tired and things are good enough, but you just want to get to the next great level. This is also an episode for those where you feel like you're really not into it, but you do sex anyway because you know it's good for your marriage or because your spouse wants it. And also for those who like sex, but they kind of sense their spouse is mostly going through the motions for you anyway. Let me tell you a little story about my friends Josh and Sarah. They are just celebrating their 11th anniversary, and like most couples with young kids, getting away is really, really hard. So this is a rare moment for them. They get to the hotel room and they're exhausted because they had to work double shifts so that they could get time off work for this weekend together. And finding a babysitter that will watch their 4 kids while they're gone is a struggle. But they found one. It was not their first choice, it was their second choice. Anyway, they're coming to the hotel room with a lot of high expectations and a lot of exhaustion. So as the evening unfolds, there's more and more pressure to move on to having sex for that night, even though they're tired and maybe not really into it. But it's their anniversary. They end up having sex anyway, and it's okay. It's not fantastic, but they're a little disappointed because they wanted it to be great. They feel like, where are we with our marriage? How come things aren't really the way we want it to be in the bedroom sexually between us? And they kind of want to know, what is it that will help us get out of our rut, get us to something that feels more real and alive in our marriage? Maybe you've felt this way sometimes. So for this couple, and for all of you in a similar situation, I want to talk to you today about eroticism. Eroticism is the thing you need in your marriage to really break through your rut and to take it to the next level. But we're kind of afraid of the word erotic. So in this episode, I'm going to untangle eroticism and erotic and kind of couch it in the frame of this is the adult version of an adult playground. This is a place where adults go to play and really connect and have a lot of fun together. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And the reason why this topic is so important is when you can bring more true eroticism into your sexual encounters, it transforms sex. It transcends routine. It makes sex less predictable, and it transforms your relationship into something that feels more truly alive, something you kind of want to look forward to and actually participate in and be a part of. A lot of us make a mistake that we think good sexual experiences are just physical, and there definitely is a physical component. But when we think of, we just need the right amount of friction and maybe sprinkle in a little bit of fantasy, that's what makes for great sex. That usually doesn't work for a lot of people. Some couples that I work with in coaching, they try to improve their sex life, kind of like they're trying to fix a lawnmower, right? They're wondering, where's that button you push to prime it? Is there enough gas in there? Have I done enough things outside of the bedroom, so to speak? And where's that cord that I yank? And it's kind of temperamental, right? You have to pull in just the right way to get the engine going. Where's my spouse's engine? How do I get his or her engine going so that they'll notice me, so that we'll have a greater sex experience? They try to treat it kind of like a mechanic, and that usually doesn't work that well in the bedroom because it lacks a bit of this spirit, this energy, this erotic feeling. Because really good sex isn't just about orgasms. And orgasms are great and all, but that's not it. We want sex that changes us, it moves us. We want sexual experiences that make us feel like different people, make us feel alive, that there's this deeper connection, like we're kind of special and welcomed in each other's arms and bodies and spirits and hearts in the bedroom. We want sex also to be full of this playful adult fun, something that you and your spouse is a little secret that you share. That's all full of fun things that only you two get to do together, and a lot of it. That's what makes sex worth wanting to participate in. So, how do you make sex really highly erotic? Well, let's talk about eroticism just for a second. Erotic and eroticism is one of those words that most of us get wrong. I used to feel like it was a dirty word because I'd conjure up Las Vegas billboards or smutty novels at the bookstore when I'd heard the word erotic. But true eroticism is not dirty. In fact, it's rooted in goodness. The word erotic comes from Greek. The root word in Greek is eros. And eros literally means sensual or passionate love. The Greek philosopher Plato went on to expand the concept of this eros philosophy beyond the sexual to include the life force. This is the thing that puts a pep in your step, a smile on your face, that makes life worth living. In short, eros, this expanded definition, is that feeling you get when you feel truly alive. I want to ask you, when's the last time you participated in an activity where you felt really, truly alive in it? Let me tell you one that I've had recently. We just finished our couples retreat 2 weekends ago, and I got to tell you, it was absolutely fantastic. We had such a good group, and it was so fun to witness over these 4 days all these brave, courageous couples really transform their relationships. They're addressing things in their marriages, they're learning new skills, new ways to connect at an emotional and physical level. And you can just see it on their faces, this great transformation. Not only that, but new friendships were made. So when it was all over Saturday night, it was so electric being in that room, watching couples, saying goodbye to each other, wanting to take photos together, making plans to see each other sometime in the future and stay in touch, and also congratulating each other on the progress and changes that they were able to witness and feel in their marriages. So me standing kind of on the side watching all this going on, to me, I felt really alive. Like, this is God's work. This is an incredible thing to witness. That's one thing that helps me truly come alive. For others, it might be composing music or playing beautiful music or listening to music. It could be art. It can be solving a difficult problem. It could be running. It could be out in nature. It could be yoga. There's all of these things that people like to do that makes them feel really alive. So erotic or eros is that energy that kind of expands you, that kind of gets you out, kind of gets you growing. As I speak and describe this, if you can see my body language, I'm sitting up a little bit straighter, I'm puffing out my chest a little bit more. It's this expansive energy. It's the one that makes you want to lean into life a little bit more and enjoy it. That's this eros energy. Imagine if you can take a piece of that energy and infuse it into your sexual relationship. That same feeling that you put into that marriage bed is what I call true eroticism. And I want to emphasize that that's why I believe true eroticism is always rooted in goodness, because it trains you into becoming a better person. It increases your commitment, your loyalty, you're more benevolent, you're more honest, and you feel more free in your marriage with your spouse. Now contrast that with quote-unquote erotic places, let's say a red light district or a brothel, which in my opinion are one of the least erotic places on earth because there's very little hope there. People go there and it's a counterfeit version of something erotic, but you walk away not feeling more connected, not more alive. It's kind of where hope goes to die. So in that contrast, we want to create marriages full of this eros energy that kind of gives you hope, kind of gives you that pep, that forward movement in your relationship. And now is probably a good time for me to remind you that our next small group coaching cohorts for men and women are starting on May 6th. And you want to join because these groups fill up fast. This is ideal for couples who are in an otherwise happy marriage but wish things were better in the intimacy department. You'll walk away from this program with more confidence, a better ability to communicate about intimate things, understand your spouse a whole lot better, and get on the same page quickly. And the magic of the program is you're in this container with 10 other men or 10 other women, and you get to go deep together on the intimacy patterns in your own marriage. This is a piece of my Greater Get Your Marriage On program, and you can just sign up just for the men's or women's small group coaching. It starts May 6th, and all of those details are on our website, and it's going to fill up fast, so sign up today. In the field of psychology research, there's this concept called flow and flow state. And there's this Dr. Muheli Csikszentmihalyi who's done a lot of research on how we get into flow states and how we really get absorbed into an activity that makes us feel really come alive. And this is how he describes it. He says, the best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. And if you apply that to sex, usually our best sexual experiences, if you think about them, are when we voluntarily choose to do something that's maybe a little out of our comfort zone, or a little more invested in our spouse, or a little more creative and fun, but you're in this flow state. This is where you're really happy, you're really absorbed in the activity, and you feel like time stops for just a second as you enjoy this extended flow. That's what sexual eroticism, like for me at least, is at its core. It's tapping into that same creative force that we intentionally channel into the sexual dimension of our relationship. And this is, again, more than just friction on the right body parts. We're talking about this creative dimension that infuses vitality and life into your marriage. And just like flow, think of flow like a hose, right? And if sexual eroticism is this flow, there's a lot of things that kink the hose. And I'm not talking about kinky in the sexual thing, pun intended there. I'm talking about things that really can constrict the erotic flow, that creative force in your marriage. And I want to talk about a few of those barriers just now. The first barrier, the thing that will kink the hose, is having too high expectations, or having unrealistic expectations, or being too goal-oriented when it comes to sex. And this is often the biggest barrier to couples enjoying more erotic play, because they want to have such a fun erotic play that goal interferes with having great erotic experiences. Let me tell you about a couple a little while ago that I met in a coaching session. This is a wonderful couple. And like many of us, they're in the thick of midlife chaos. They're raising kids, building careers, juggling countless responsibilities, including active roles in their church community. So we sit down, and after some pleasantries, I ask them, so tell me about your sex life. What does it look like in your marriage? And what they told me probably sounds familiar to you. They say our pattern usually is we're tired, it's night, and the wife is talking at this point. She's saying, I'm in bed, I want to go to sleep because I have to wake up really early to do the morning carpool for the teenagers. And so I'm sitting in bed and I'm reading a book trying to relax. My husband comes in and he gives me that look. Night after night, it's the same question. It's the, are we going to have sex tonight question. It hangs so heavy that I can only imagine it's so thick it might set off a smoke alarm. Right? Anyway, he gives her that look, and she knows it's been a while. She wants to be a good wife. Hey, actually, she really likes sex too, but it's that conflict. I'm tired. And this is going to be, another half hour or another 45 minutes. Do I really want to do it? Anyway, she will slip out of bed, go into the closet, change into something sexy, and they'll enjoy their time together. She'll have an orgasm or two. He'll have an orgasm. They finally clean up and go to bed. And that's the script. It kind of repeats. But for him, it's like he had an orgasm, but yet, why is it so hard for you to want to say yes the next time? And for her is, I'm so tired. I really want to please you, but I also really want time for myself. How do I reconcile this in our marriage? So this becomes kind of the conflict point. And he thinks, if only you liked sex even more, only if you invested in our sexual relationship as much as I am, then our marriage would be so much better. And this is kind of where they kind of go around and around. And this is where eroticism could help them. This is their kink toes, but they don't see it that way yet. So in this coaching session, I turn to them and I ask them this question. I say, just curious, how do you know when you're done having sex? And, they look at me kind of funny because that's kind of an obvious question. Anyway, the wife says, when we have an orgasm? I'm like, right, good. Do you like having orgasms? I ask. And now they're looking at me a little strange, like, who doesn't, right? But I'm I'm getting to a point here. So I tell them, look, orgasms are awesome, but that's not how you know you've had a good sexual experience. Obviously, that's how you know when you're both done for the night, but it's like something you have to work through, and you know you're not done together until you've had the orgasm to kind of, that's like the finish line or the checking it off. Yet, when you're at a not highly aroused yet, getting to that feels like work. So, in your sexual moments together, when it's nighttime and that question is looming, are we going to have sex tonight? What you're really asking is, am I going to be putting in the effort tonight in our marriage so that he or she has an orgasm? And even though it might take some work, are we going to do it? And that's why sex might feel a little routine, because you're approaching the problem like it's something that we need to solve and check off and kind of get done. Even though you may not feel like it's that way, that's the way it's kind of playing out in your marriage. They look at me and they kind of nod. And then the husband, I can see the gears turning in his head. And he says, wait, so are you saying we should stop having sex? Which is a fair and legitimate question. And so I tell them, I think you should stop having the kind of sex you're having right now. It's not sex worth wanting. You want a shared sexual experience that both of you will enthusiastically say yes to. Then I tell this couple that I'm coaching about a different couple that I met who once told me that they have sex every day or almost every day, which really caught my attention. Maybe that catches your attention too. Really? Sex every day? Because when I hear someone that says, we had sex, I think, a penis went to a vagina and one person had an orgasm. That's kind of the image that conjures up. It's like kind of at that level. But for this couple that told me they had sex every day, for them, they changed their own definition of sex to mean we shared arousal for a period of time, whether it was 5 minutes or 10 minutes or a half hour, whether an orgasm was involved in that or not. They did something intentional to enjoy arousal together because arousal feels good, just for arousal's sake. And by that definition, yes, they're having sexual experiences. It may not be orgasmic all the time, but they're having sexual experiences every day. And it's something that they both want to participate in. So I explained this to the couple I'm coaching. And the reason why I want them to understand this is when you can make sex easy, as in lower the barrier, lower the bar to something that you can more easily and readily say yes to. If it's something simple, something easy, something that will feel good almost no matter what, then it doesn't feel like work anymore. This feels like play. This is like an invitation to something great that you won't want to turn down because it's going to be great. It's going to be connecting. It's going to be fun. And it doesn't feel like you have to do some work or effort that's going to take away from something else that feels really pressing to you in the moment. And besides, isn't it great to feel like you can say yes to your spouse, especially if it feels more playful and inviting? So I suggest to this couple that they focus less on orgasm as a finish line and more about arousal for a period of time that feels good for both of them. And yes, orgasms do feel good. But when they become the goal or the measure of being done with sex, getting to orgasm starts to feel like work. So they need to focus on that arousal. And the wife now tells me I can get on board with that. And I can tell she likes that by her body language. The husband, though, has a question. What if I actually do want to have an orgasm? Like, if we're just having 5 minutes of play, that might not be enough for me. What if I really do want an orgasm? Anyway, I explained to him, well, I am pretty sure you know how to give yourself an orgasm if you really want one. And she's welcome to the same thing too. And you can still be together in it. You can still be side by side, laying. You might not have clothes on too, and just enjoying the moment together. But there's no more demand of a finish. There's no more of a demand to reach a certain goal. It's the focus of really enjoying each other. And the wife, nods her head big. I can totally get on board with that. She thinks that's a great idea. Now, this couple has a little bit of work to do to rewrite their scripts. They need to change the way they approach each other and the way they enjoy each other to This isn't about an orgasm or getting through something. This is about enjoying each other thoroughly, right here, just as we are. And that approach makes sex a whole lot easier. I guarantee you're going to have a lot more fun and a lot more of this erotic energy, this raw, life-giving, fun, playful energy in your relationship when sex is no longer feeling like work for you as a couple, but it's something you both can participate in and you feel aroused in it. And it's not about goals or meeting some sort of a deadline or some sort of a finish line. And it's not about filling some sort of a quota either. There's a phrase we use a lot at our marriage retreats and one that I put in my Get Your Marriage On program, and it's called learning to love the adult playground. A lot of us don't even know what sounds fun for us, or we may not yet be at the level of, well, that sounds great. I want to participate in that. This sounds sexually exciting for me. I want that in our marriage. Kind of still struggle with that. So let me give you some 4 practical tips on how you can learn to love the adult playground so you can enjoy more flow and creativity and life in your sexual experiences. Okay, the first strategy I want to tell you is about acceptance. Now, this is accepting yourself, accepting your spouse, and thirdly, accepting your marriage dynamic and everything involved in that. So as Dr. Stephen Snyder says, acceptance is vitamin A for a relationship. And I love that. Acceptance is absolutely fundamental to learning to love the adult playground. There's something profoundly liberating when you learn how to accept your sexuality, your turn-ons and turn-offs, your body, your spirit, your mind, exactly as it is, without shame, without wishing it was different, or without comparing yourself to some imaginary ideal. So here's what acceptance might look like to you. It might be just accepting that there are sexual desire differences in your marriage. In virtually every marriage that I know, one person wants sex more than the other, or wants different sexual activities than the other, and that's completely normal. Couples get in trouble, though, when, for example, the higher desire spouse is trying to convert the lower desire spouse to match his or her level of sexual enthusiasm, and that usually backfires. Or the opposite also, when the lower desire spouse is trying to drag the higher desire spouse down to their level as a way of resolving the orgasm gap or the sexual desire gap. That doesn't really work in relationships because you're solving the problem by trying to look across from you, trying to fix your spouse. And we all hate feeling like a project. We all hate feeling like we're trying to get fixed by our spouse. Rather, we need to reframe our thinking and look at it more like our sexual desire differences are actually not a problem. How boring life would be if we're all the same. And there's a lot of variety and variation in human sexuality and what people find exciting and disgusting, right? There's quite a range. And I believe that's by divine design why there's so much variation. So having variation in and of itself isn't the problem, but it's how we approach our different desire levels and what we make them mean. That's the issue. So learning that our discrepancies here actually can be something for our good. We need a little bit of both in order to balance each other out, and each person working together as an intimate team to create a marriage, a sexual relationship that they're both happy about. That is work that requires you to grow up. And that growth process can be very eros-inducing, very life-giving to your entire relationship as both of you learn how to grow in that dimension. Let me contrast that with a story about a couple I had coached a long time ago. They were in the middle of their sexual desire differences, and he really wanted something very hot, very spicy, a lot more novelty in his sexual relationship. So he turns to his wife and says, "Wife, tell me about your sexual fantasies. I want to hear them all. Let's do them. I want to hear about your fantasies." So she says, okay, let me think about this. My fantasy is that I feel really deeply cared for. I feel completely relaxed. The kids are in bed and I just feel really beautiful right now. That was not what he was expecting to hear. So he says, no. You don't understand. Tell me about your sexual fantasies. So she tries again, says, okay, so I'm wearing some pretty lacy underwear, and we've had this amazing conversation where you were vulnerable and open with me, and I was vulnerable and open with you, and I feel like we really truly connected, and then, I don't know, we get aroused together and enjoy being together. Now, this husband's really dismissive of his wife in this moment. He's like, that's what we already do. No, no, no. He's thinking to himself, I want you to tell me about your fantasies, like maybe trying anal sex or some other exotic location, or maybe me coming on a different part of your body, or a role play, or me tying you up, like something along those lines, right? So he's frustrated. He says, no, tell me about your sexual fantasies. And the conversation keeps going and going and going. Do you see what's happening with this couple? He had such a narrow definition of what sexual fantasies should look like that he couldn't actually hear her and what she was really saying. And he's missing a gold mine of information of what she's really offering. She's offering a precise map to her eroticism. She was literally telling him exactly what would help her come alive in the bedroom, which brings new energy in the relationship. But he couldn't receive it because it didn't match what he thought it should be. So this is for both partners, the person speaking and the person listening. We need to recognize that and accept that our spouse may have a very different erotic blueprint or erotic approach than we do. And neither person is right or wrong here. You need to learn how to make room for both, room for two in that relationship. Along with acceptance, that vitamin A, is learning what your turn-ons and turn-offs are, or as others have said, what your brakes and accelerators are. You can also accept if your spouse tends to be more responsive or more spontaneous in their sexual desire pattern and inclination. We can also accept that men and women are wired differently. There's a biological and probably a divine purpose to these differences. And I'm not just referring to what's below the neck here. Generally speaking, men and women's brains have such a different biological standpoint. In brain scans, a man's brain and a woman's brain is wired differently, literally different, which influences our attitudes towards sex and the way we approach it. All right, strategy number 2 to infuse more eroticism in your relationship is to remember that sexual fantasies can't be forced. Ever try to force inspiration or demand a creative breakthrough like you're at writer's block? Like, help me know what I need to write right now. Give me creativity right now. It's not always on tap. Creativity doesn't quite happen that way. So eroticism doesn't happen that way. Sexual eroticism is not a vending machine. You can't just put in the right currency, push the button, and ta-da, playfulness appears. Weird Al Yankovic's his last studio album was called Mandatory Fun. What a great oxymoron, right? You can't mandate fun and just have it appear in your sexual relationship. So, to have more eros energy in your relationship, you need to take a step back and think of your eroticism as a couple, kind of like a garden. You prepare the soil, you fertilize it, you keep it free from weeds, you water it consistently, make sure it gets enough sunshine, and so on. And when the conditions are right, your eroticism will naturally bloom and blossom on its own. Sometimes couples have the most erotic experiences when they actually don't have any expectations for sex, and they're kind of relaxed. They're able to really connect heart to heart and also connect within themselves. They can really settle down, and all of a sudden, sexual creativity shows up. And you can recreate those experiences by creating the right conditions for that to happen more often in your relationship. And just as a side note, too many of us are living our lives so packed with obligations that we've eliminated all margin from our lives. And I learned this concept from Francie Winslow. She hosts the podcast Heaven in Your Home, and she's also been a guest on my podcast before. She made a deliberate choice in her marriage years ago to reduce the hectic nature of her life to create more margin, and she defines it as intentional downtime and empty space in her schedule to make room for things that inevitably pop up, and it always does. It's for the unexpected. This same principle applies to your erotic life. Make some more margin, and then you'll be able to handle the ups and downs and the unexpected things of life, and you have energy and room left over for that creative special space between the two of you. My third strategy to help you infuse your marriage with more of this erotic goodness is to listen to your own erotic voice. Many of us have suppressed our eroticism for so long that we instinctively have learned how to snuff it out. And this was me, by the way, for the first 13 years or so of my marriage. I was a quintessential good boy married to a quintessential good girl, which to me means I had mistakenly thought that any sexual thought or urge I had was sinful. or it's something I had to really clamp down and keep under control tightly. I didn't know how to be a spiritual person and a sexual person at the same time, mistakenly thinking that these two ideas are like oil and water. They just do not mix together and they're always at odds with each other. And if you come from your sexuality understanding with that framing, it's no wonder that you'll want to suppress your sexuality. It's something you have to always tighten down. Now, of course, the opposite is also unhealthy, where it's unbridled, you pander to it, and it's an anything goes mentality, and that will also be not good for your marriage either. So there's this happy balance, and it takes a lot of maturity to grow up and understand how to balance these two better. With that backdrop, I give this assignment to a lot of those I coach. I teach it in my Get Your Marriage On program, and we teach it at our marriage retreats. And I get this idea from Nicole Daedon. She's the author of the book called Slow Sex, and it's an exercise that I've done a few times, and I encourage my clients to do it too. So what I want you to do is find a quiet place where you won't be interrupted and get settled, and get out a sheet of paper and a pen, and at the top of the paper, write this question: what does my sexuality want? And your goal is to, for 10 minutes, without lifting your pen, just write and write. What does your sexuality want? And you need to do this in a place where you can do it without a filter or without judgment. We often have a thought and we instantly judge it. What you want to do is just give it a voice. I want you to learn how to listen to what your sexual self could tell you. The few times I've done this exercise, and those that have done this exercise with me in my coaching programs, just feel a remarkably interesting and insightful experience. They learn so much about themselves. Now, you don't have to do anything with your paper. You can put it on your fridge, frame it, or burn it if that feels more comfortable. But the point is, if you suppress your sexuality, your sexual voice, then it's hard for you to infuse your marriage and your life with this creative life force that's rooted in goodness. So give it a listen. See what comes up. We often fear our sexuality because we've been told it's dangerous. So we don't give it due credit. We don't give our sexuality the power it can have to bind couples and to create unbreakable marriages with it, to elevate us, to kickstart our creative energy, or to teach us things that we can only learn from experiencing it. But if you'll instead listen to your sexual self speak, you listen with curiosity, it doesn't turn you into a deviant. You might find something that actually might encourage you to grow and strengthen your marriage in a new way that you have not thought of before. My fourth and last strategy to infuse your marriage with more eroticism is about taking pleasure and not giving pleasure when it comes to sex. And here's what I mean. A wife recently said to me, I love sex with my husband, but I don't want it to feel like it's just routine. I want to feel pursued instead of just assuming we'll have sex as scheduled. Besides, when we do have sex, it's actually kind of boring. It's so on repeat. It's the same thing over and over. How do I tell my husband that I want something a little more? In other words, she's craving more erotic tension in her sexual relationship with her husband. Too many husbands, I've learned, approach sex as though it's their job to give their wives pleasure, and they're super focused on getting it done right to her satisfaction. Which makes sense. Like, if you're at work and you have a job to do, you're going to be concerned about getting the job done right. But it's that job mentality in the bedroom that is so not passionate. Let me give you an example to illustrate what I mean. Let's say I want you to kiss your spouse. Is it hotter to kiss your spouse so that you're focused on them and make sure you're kissing them right, that they're happy with the kiss? Or is it a lot harder to kiss your spouse because you love the feeling of their lips or their tongue and you love that closeness with them? You're taking the pleasure in kissing your spouse. I'd venture to say it's the second is way more hot. Let me give you another illustration of what I mean, and using oral sex. Don't just give oral sex to your spouse. Too many of us say that, right? Don't just give oral sex because your spouse likes it. Do oral sex on your spouse because of how much you enjoy doing it to your spouse, how turned on you get giving this gift to your spouse. Take pleasure in performing it. Isn't it way hotter, by the way, when your spouse is going down on you and they genuinely enjoy themselves, they're enthusiastic about doing it? Now that's way more exciting. In fact, we did a whole podcast episode on this topic a few years ago with Danielle Savory as my guest. It's episode number 137, and it's titled, Blowjobs Aren't Just for Husbands. implying that, ladies, you can get super turned on and even have an orgasm while giving your husband a blowjob in the process. That's kind of the idea. We take pleasure, not give pleasure. So to this wife asking for this advice, tell your husband, just enjoy me. Just touch me in the way that you want to enjoy me, like for a second. Have a little bit of a healthy narcissism or a healthy selfishness and give yourself the same permission to let me touch you in a way that I like, and that's fun for me. Now, I want to clarify, this isn't giving you permission to just touch your spouse or engage in a sexual act that they don't want or choose, that they're not consenting to. That's crossing boundaries, and it's indulgent and isn't good for your marriage if you do that. But it's about the energy of, I am here because I love how good it feels for me to touch you in this way. All right, in conclusion, we've talked about a lot of strategies today. I want you to walk away from this episode with a commitment to infuse more eroticism and more life into your sexual encounters, right? Our eroticism, our sexuality is God-given and is designed to expand who we are. It invites us to our next level, makes us come alive. And sex, by the way, isn't just for making babies, but it's also for giving fresh life in your marriage. We'll find it a lot easier to tap into that flow, that creative state of sexual eroticism, if you unkink the hose that's blocking flow in your sexual relationship. And often what I find it is expectations, barriers, schedules, outcomes, goal-oriented approach to sex interferes. Rather, rewrite your scripts. Make it something about sharing pleasure for the fun of it, because I just love being with you, kind of an attitude. I am enjoying you, and you're enjoying me in this setting. In addition, when you accept your sexuality for what it is, and you invite this dynamic between you and your spouse, and you make it work for you instead of against you in your sexual relationship, it'll unlock more of this creative energy in your relationship. Also, you can't force these things to happen. You have to take the approach like a good gardener, where you're going to prepare the right conditions so that your creative eroticism will show up. Also, sometimes taking a moment to listen to our inner sexual self and what our sexual self wants is a great key to infusing your sex life with more of this creative energy. And lastly, take pleasure, not just focus on giving pleasure when it comes to sex. If you'd like more help in infusing more eroticism in your marriage, reach out. Let me see if I can help. You can schedule an appointment with me on my calendar. You can also check out my Get Your Marriage On program, where we implement these 4 strategies and many, many more in your marriage so that you can say goodbye to the monotony and the routine type sex and actually enjoy something richer, something more alive that both of you will want to participate in. By the way, my program is really built for couples that have an otherwise happy marriage and just really want to take the sexual intimacy component of their marriage to the next level. And you'll find all those details on my website at getyourmarriageon.com. Now, hope you have a great weekend and go get your marriage on.